Hey guys, it's Bill from Linden, Tennessee. Well, I figured out something that I thought was going to be a real big old problem. It turns out it really wasn't all that big of a problem. I just needed a little help from a friend on the YouTubes. So, looking down through there, you can see straight into the reservoir. And that's because I figured out how to put a little section on the bottom of on the top of the reservoir that meets up with the bottom of this filler tube. And I'll show you how I went about doing that right now. I think I found a way to find out where this tube goes for this coolant reservoir. A buddy of mine on YouTube, Chris, who, by the way, needs to get back to work on his tractor, he suggested that I sort of weld a piece of rod or something to the top of my reservoir, roughly where I think it goes, and then reach down in the hole and poke it around and to find out where it actually goes. So that's what this is. So I did. I just took a piece of aluminum rod and glued it with some aluminum to the top of the reservoir, stuck this thing up in there and poked this around and figured out where it goes, and then transferred this angle and that length to this little doohickey right here. Found out that it goes roughly there, and then used the tape to hold that in position and put it back in there, and found out that yeah, that's actually pretty dang close to where it goes. So now I can go in here and try and dig some of this material out and weld that in place. I'll tack it in place kind of lightly just to make sure that this is still true. All right, after climbing up and down on that creeper 100 times and installing this 100 times and taking it out 100 times, ow, shucks, that's really warm. I welded it. It doesn't look wonderful, but nobody can see it, and I don't really care. It is where it's supposed to be, and it's solid, and I don't think it's going to leak. And I dug the hole out of the center there, and this was a really difficult weld. For a more experienced welder, maybe not. And it certainly doesn't look good, but it's solid, and it's on there, and it's not going to leak. That's really, really great. Once this thing cools down to some temperature below the surface of the sun, I'll go ahead and install it. And so here it is. Before, oops, can I turn the light on? Yeah. See down there, just got 2 hose clamps. Pretty basic, really. Just getting this thing all lined up and correct was the tough part, and that's almost exactly where it needs to go. The next thing for this is I need to connect a little return hose that turn down. That's like whenever you fill this up with fuel, like any overflow from the tank, foam or whatever, comes up and it touches the bottom of the fuel nozzle, and that's what actually makes the auto stop function of the nozzle of the fuel fill thing work. But I'm going to use that as a return for my coolant, and I think that'll be kind of a convenient use of that, because whenever the pumps are running, it'll be spitting coolant back in through there, and I'll know that A, the pumps are working, and B, that there's coolant in it, because there's no other way of checking this. So yeah, there you go. So like I said, I need to connect that little tube there on the side. I think all I'm going to do for that is come up underneath here and, ouch. Oh. So this is where it would have come from, the fuel tank, and gone up to there. So I think what I'm going to do is just cut this out. Probably just cut it out completely. And then, I don't know if I showed you this or not, but this crazy looking thing right here is for, yeah, so this crazy little thing here is for an 8AN fitting. I don't know if I'm going to use stainless line on this or if I'll use this black. It's got like a nylon braid on it instead of the stainless. I may use the stainless. The stainless is kind of cool. It's just harder to work with. Whenever you cut this stuff, you end up with a million little needles that will show you what color your blood is. So that's going to go to about right here. Yeah, so it goes in there, and then it'll come out this way, and then that will come up, and then probably snake along this line, this frame over here, and then come over to my radiator, which I've just got kind of loosely tacked there, so I don't even want to look at that hard. I ran out of welding gas last weekend, so I had to quit on all this. But I got these braces in there, so that's pretty cool. So now that I got some welding gas, I'll go ahead and finish welding that. I needed to get a longer piece of angle because this is just barely hanging on to the top. So I've got a longer piece of angle, and then I'll finish welding that in there better, make some little gussets for this part and over here. But yeah, that coolant line will come over here, go in up here, or maybe it'll go in down here, so that when it goes through all this mess, it gets all the air out, and then it'll go into the motor, and from the motor it'll go back up into here and back into the tank. So that is pretty great, and that is one less thing to worry about there. Once I get this welded in and solid, I can, and then do this, get these brackets all done. I can take this radiator off and then come back under here and spray it with that undercoating stuff, and that'll just be that part of this taken care of. Then I can put the motor back in here, the DD on tube back in here, and set it down on its wheels. That way I can start working on that front battery box and getting it on its mounts and level and square and all that stuff. And once that's done, then I'll move on to the next thing. So, yeah, there you go. Okay, well, this is a Sunday. I didn't get a whole lot done today. Wife and I went to see the new Joker movie. I'll just say this, it's a musical. And maybe if you go see it, you'll be ready for that before you get there and not be surprised by it. Anyway, I did get home and wanted to go ahead and put some of this back together, so I got the DD on tube up in there, and got the motor up in there, and got one axle. And the reason I don't have two axles, if you remember, because I thought it'd be a really good idea to go ahead and pack the inner of the other side. And I don't know why I thought that's a good idea, but what that means is that I can't do anything with it because it's going to make a mess out of everything that it touches. So, oh well. And what else did I do? I also went up in here. Well, this was yesterday. Went up in here and kind of did some undercoating. I didn't go too nuts with it. I mean, this is good enough. It's better than it was. And any of the factory undercoating or whatever that stuff was they put on there, if I didn't scrape it off, it means it's on there really, really good. So it's good. And any of it that I did scrape off, this undercoating will cover it. But ultimately, that doesn't even really matter all that much either. But anyhow, yeah, I wanted to get this kind of up in there. I need to put the discs on here and the calipers. And I think tomorrow what I'm going to try and do is get this all back together and drop this thing down on its own weight, so I can see what my ride height is, and then I can go about doing the front battery box. That is the next thing. So this is pretty cool. I've got two coolant systems on these small drive units. There's one here. This is for the inverter, and then over on the other side is sort of an oil to water cooler for the transmission. I don't really know how those are supposed to be. I think on the actual car they're just sort of wired in parallel. I don't know if one's an in and one's an out. I think this top one might be an out because it looks like it's got a temperature sensor. And that kind of makes sense because it is higher than the other one. I would want to run this one in first, and that way any water and any air would get flushed out to the top and out of that one. So if anybody out there knows if there is a correct routing, is this, can I put these in series? Do they go in parallel? If they need to go in parallel, I'll probably just make some sort of a manifold and mount it right here, and then it'll come from my radiator and then go up to the manifold, split out to those two systems, and then those two systems probably maybe come into their own manifold and then head over back to the reservoir. But yep, so this is pretty sweet. These are my super cool little titanium bolts. Yep, and I got those off Amazon. I hope that they're strong. They should be strong. I'm not going to be doing anything really stupid with this. So anyway, just wanted to show you what I got done by the end of this weekend. I appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you next time.